At 0726 local time on a Tuesday in June 2025, the Russian patrol ship Razul Gamatov detected two faint returns on its radar. They were small, sluggish, and closing from the west across the dark expanse of the Caspian Sea. The crew immediately scrambled to battle stations, their AK-630 cannon pivoting toward the horizon with a mechanical whine that signaled a high-stakes engagement. The crew could not have known in those frantic moments was that a fundamental design flaw etched into the ship's blueprints years ago had already effectively sealed the vessel's fate. These two Ukrainian FP-2 drones had launched hours earlier from a hidden site outside Dnipro, and their first encounter with mortality had actually come from their own side. A Ukrainian Buk M1 surface-to-air missile battery had acquired the drones much earlier that morning. To the radar operators, these low-flying contacts matched the exact profile of the suicide drones they had been hunting all week. The fire control officer's hand hovered over the launch trigger, eyes locked on the flickering green returns on his display. Only a few heartbeats remained until weapons release. Just as he was about to commit a missile worth hundreds of thousands of dollars to destroy his own hardware, he performed a final check of the restricted flight corridors. One of these paths was active during that exact window. The drones were flying precisely within that protected lane at an altitude of about 200 meters. His hand came off the firing authorization so fast he nearly dislodged his headset. They had been less than the blink of an eye away from destroying a high-priority special operation with a friendly missile. The drones passed through the sector without their internal logic ever registering how close they had come to a catastrophic error. Ahead lay 300 kilometers of contested airspace, where every operator on the ground was actually aiming to kill. The drones crossed into occupied territory shortly after, dropping their altitude to less than the height of a standard cell tower, as the frozen landscape of the Donbass scrolled beneath them. At that height, Russian radar systems were virtually blind, not because of some expensive stealth coating, but because of the unyielding laws of physics. Radar energy travels in straight lines, while the Earth itself curves away. If you place a radar antenna on a truck and point it at an object skimming the ground, the mathematical geometry is unforgiving. Beyond a certain distance, the target is effectively hidden below the horizon. The radar can pump out massive amounts of energy, and it will not matter because the signal will pass harmlessly overhead, touching nothing but empty air. The planet itself becomes a physical shield for the intruder. The drone's pre-programmed route exploited every single gap created by this fundamental curvature of the Earth. Advanced air defense batteries near Rostov had theoretical engagement ranges covering hundreds of kilometers, but that assumes targets are at high altitude where the radar can actually see them. Against something hugging the terrain, their effective detection range collapsed to a tiny fraction of its potential. The FP-2's course was a masterclass in navigation, threading between overlapping coverage zones like a needle through fabric. There were safe corridors that narrowed significantly in the tightest sections. If the drones drifted too far in either direction, a nearby battery would paint them instantly. The margins were incredibly thin, but these $500 drones did not need wide margins. They just needed the mathematical logic of the route to be exactly right. The problem was that the airspace was never truly empty, and the drones were about to encounter a mobile threat they could not predict or avoid. By 0334, the tactical situation shifted, as a Russian M18 helicopter lifted off on a routine patrol. The crew was not specifically hunting for small drones. They were watching for sabotage teams near critical rail lines after previous successful strikes by partisans. However, Russian air defense saw both aircraft on the same integrated display, and an observant operator noticed that the smaller contact had been flying a perfectly straight line for over 10 minutes. Nature does not move with that kind of mechanical consistency. Someone directed the helicopter to close the gap for a visual identification. The drones could not change course even if they knew the helicopter was approaching, as they lacked any sensors to detect an incoming threat. The helicopter was not physically pushing the drone, but it was pushing Russian attention directly onto the narrow corridor the drones were using to transit the sector. Search pattern instructed every radar operator in the area to focus their sensors on that specific lane, and to look more closely at faint returns they might otherwise ignore as background static. The safe route had not moved, but the number of eyes pointed at it had grown significantly. Within a few kilometers of a major radar station, the horizon that had been protecting the drones was about to become a liability. At this range, atmospheric effects started to play a role. Temperature inversions can bend radar energy over the physical horizon, extending the detection range unexpectedly. Cold air over warmer ground creates layers that act like lenses. abducting signals into places they should not normally reach. This was the moment where the mission lived or died on a lucky bounce of a radio wave from a system that was never meant to see something this small. A Russian radar sweep found something faint and intermittent, flickering at the edge of detection like a digital ghost. The operator watched it appear and disappear, shifting position in a way that looked like textbook atmospheric clutter. But clutter does not usually hold a consistent heading for several minutes at a time. One phone call to the regional command center would have scrambled fighters and alerted the entire network. But was a flickering ghost worth the paperwork of a false alarm? He logged the contact as a low-confidence return and moved on to other sectors. That single decision saved the mission. The drones flew on toward 300 kilometers of empty steppe. This was a frozen void with no cities and no infrastructure worth protecting. After previous strikes on rear areas, the High Command had learned that they could not protect everything with stationary batteries, so they put fighters in the air instead. High above the grassland, 2 Russian fighters flew a monotonous racetrack pattern. They were burning thousands of liters of fuel every hour just to watch an empty sky. It was expensive and tedious, but it had become an absolute necessity. The radar on these jets could detect a large aircraft from very far away, but against something the size of a small drone, that range collapsed. Radar signature scales with the size of the target, and a small drone is roughly equivalent to a large bird. At very low altitudes, with ground clutter filling the scope, the practical detection range dropped to almost nothing. However, the radar was not the only tool available. The infrared sensor mounted in the nose of the fighters was a passive system. It did not emit anything. It just watched for heat that should not exist in the cold night air. While radar needs reflected energy to function, infrared looks for the source. The drone's engine was pushing exhaust hundreds of degrees hotter than the surrounding air. That temperature differential was as obvious as a lighthouse on a dark coast. The infrared return did not care about radar signature or ground clutter. Heat was heat. The only question was whether the sensor was pointed in the right direction. At that moment, it was not. The sensors looked forward and down, but the drones were dozens of kilometers behind the fighters and thousands of meters below, sitting squarely in the blind spot that exists behind any forward-looking system. The seeker was watching the ceiling while the target was on the floor, but the racetrack pattern would eventually bring the hunters around for a look at their own six, and that was when the game would change. The fighters eventually completed their assigned leg of the patrol and banked into a hard turn at 0529, their wings biting sharply into the thin, frozen air. For several minutes, they had been flying away from the suspected threat, their sensors pointed aft in routine sweeps. Now, as they rolled level again, the geometry of the encounter inverted completely. Instead of increasing distance, they were closing rapidly, their combined velocity compressing the space between them and the unknown contacts. What had been a distant possibility was now a developing engagement. Infrared arrays adjusted automatically, narrowing their focus onto the coordinates where the drones were expected to be. Only a few minutes remained before the closing distance shrank into lethal range. Under each wing, missiles waited in silent readiness, their guidance systems already warming. These weapons were designed for precisely this environment, high-contrast targets against a frozen background, where even small heat signatures stood out like flares in the darkness. Against such systems, slow-moving drones were vulnerable. The fighters' computers continuously refined firing solutions, building probability models with every passing second. Meanwhile, far ahead, the drones flew on without deviation, obediently following their programmed waypoints. Their exhaust plumes streamed faintly behind them, thin threads of heat dissipating into the polar air. They had no awareness that the hunt had reversed. A faint radar anomaly finally appeared on the lead pilot's display, little more than a weak shimmer against the clutter of atmospheric noise. It was subtle enough that many pilots would have dismissed it outright, but its movement was steady, its bearing consistent. That suggested something airborne, something deliberate. The lead pilot narrowed his scan and shifted his aircraft slightly to refine the contact. His pulse quickened as the return strengthened just enough to justify investigation. This was no longer routine patrol. This was now a potential interception. He adjusted his course, easing toward the contact, while his wingman slid smoothly into a combat spread several kilometers off his flank. The maneuver was practiced and instinctive, giving both aircraft overlapping fields of fire and sensor coverage. Together they formed a moving net, ready to collapse around whatever they had found. In the cockpit, warning tones and data overlays blended into a controlled storm of information. Everything indicated that they were closing on something real. The pilots prepared for visual confirmation, but the drone's route included a carefully calculated turn at a specific waypoint, embedded deep in its navigation code. It was a contingency built by engineers who understood that geometry could be as powerful as weapons. As the fighters accelerated, confident in their intercept, the drone reached that waypoint and pivoted precisely on schedule. Its new heading cut perpendicular to the fighter's approach path. In a matter of seconds, the entire engagement geometry shifted. From the fighter's new angle, the drone's exhaust plume was no longer exposed. Its fuselage masked the heat source, blocking the strongest infrared emissions. What had been a bright, trackable signature collapsed into a faint smear barely distinguishable from background noise. The thermal return weakened, then fragmented, then vanished altogether. The lead pilot adjusted his sensor filters, switching modes and narrowing bands, and trying to pull the contact back out of the static, but nothing solid emerged. The sky was full of phantom returns in this environment, and experienced pilots knew better than to chase every ghost. Fuel gauges were beginning to edge into uncomfortable territory. The intercept had taken longer than expected, and the extended maneuvering had burned through reserves. Command guidelines were clear: do not jeopardize recovery for uncertain contacts. With reluctance, the lead pilot disengaged, turning his aircraft back toward base. His wingman followed. Whatever they had nearly caught had slipped through their net. The hunters returned empty-handed, unaware of how close they had come. Below them, the drones cleared the final patrol zone, still hugging the terrain at extremely low altitude. Their navigation systems ticked off waypoints with mechanical precision, indifferent to the danger they had just escaped. A single programmed turn and a few seconds of timing had separated survival from destruction. Ahead, the dark expanse of the Caspian Sea began to appear on the horizon. This was the most dangerous phase of the mission. Over open water, concealment was harder, and enemy sensors were concentrated. Every radar, every receiver, every operator would be watching for them. As the drones descended to skim just meters above the waves, they activated their own seekers and tightened their formation. Sea spray misted against their fuselages. Almost immediately, the patrol ship's radar acquired them. This time, the contact was solid and unmistakable. Alarms sounded on the bridge. But detection alone was not enough. The problem lay in the approach vector. The drones were coming in from an oblique angle that placed them directly outside the optimal firing zone of the ship's main gun, whose barrels pointed forward along the bow. The weapon system was fully automated, a layered network of radar, optical trackers, fire control computers, and hydraulic actuators designed to react faster than any human crew ever could. Once a target was detected, the system calculated intercept vectors, lead angles, and ballistic solutions in fractions of a second. Servo motors whined as the turret slewed, following invisible lines of mathematics through the air. Under ideal conditions, the gun could shred incoming threats before an operator even finished registering their presence. But perfection on paper did not erase the stubborn limits of steel and structure. The ship's own masts, antennas, exhaust stacks, and sensor towers rose like a forest around the turret, creating forbidden corridors where firing would mean striking itself. Engineers had mapped these zones carefully, embedding them into the weapon's control logic as permanent no-fire sectors. The system knew, at every instant, which angles were lethal to the enemy and which were lethal to the ship. From the drone's approach vector, they drifted precisely along the outer boundary of one such sector, skimming the edge of safety by mere degrees. On the radar display, their tracks were crisp and unwavering, bright symbols sliding steadily inward. Fire control software generated perfect solutions again and again, only to discard them milliseconds later as unsafe. Each time, the turret advanced, hesitated, and stopped, its motors pressing uselessly against invisible limits. Inside the Combat Information Center, warning tones began to overlap. Operators watched in mounting frustration as targeting brackets snapped on and off, never quite settling. The automation, built to eliminate hesitation, had instead manufactured it. Locked between threat and self-preservation, the system oscillated in a narrow band of indecision. It could see the drones. It could calculate their destruction. It simply could not execute. The interface displayed a growing stack of rejected firing solutions, each annotated with the same sterile message: obstruction hazard. On the bridge, the captain read the situation instantly. Geometry, not courage or competence, was killing them. He ordered a hard turn, voice sharp and clipped, commanding the helm to swing the ship beneath the incoming trajectory. Engines surged. The rudder bit into the water. The hull leaned heavily to starboard as centrifugal force pressed the crew against railings and consoles. Outside, white water exploded along the flanks as thousands of tons of steel tried to pivot like a much smaller craft. The maneuver was violent, but necessary. Only by changing the ship's orientation could they hope to clear the gun's line of fire. For a few hopeful seconds, it seemed to work. The firing arc widened. The turret crept forward, tracking more aggressively. But geometry is relentless. As the ship rotated, the drone's apparent bearing shifted in perfect synchronization. Their relative position slid sideways across the targeting display, staying just beyond reach. Every meter of lateral movement by the ship was mirrored by a corresponding shift in firing angle. No matter how aggressively the captain maneuvered, the drones remained balanced on the edge of the forbidden zone, like stones poised on a knife's blade. The crew fought the mathematics without realizing it. Helm orders grew sharp, course corrections came faster, throttle adjustments stacked on top of one another, yet each change only fed the same invisible equation. The more desperately they tried to align the gun, the more precisely the engagement geometry denied them. It was not strategy or deception guiding the drones at this stage. It was momentum and vector relationships doing their quiet, merciless work. As the range collapsed to its final margins, the captain authorized emergency overrides. Safety margins were compressed, software tolerances were narrowed, the system was ordered to accept higher structural risk in exchange for a fleeting chance at engagement. Hydraulic pressure spiked as actuators pushed beyond normal limits. The turret shuddered, metal joints protesting. Then, briefly, impossibly, the targeting reticle stabilized. A green indicator flashed on multiple displays. Firing solution valid. For the first time since detection, the system had found a legal path through the maze of constraints. The automated trigger engaged instantly. The cannon roared, its recoil hammering through the deck. Hundreds of rounds tore outward in a dense stream, tracer lines stitching glowing arcs across the darkness. The night lit up in stuttering bursts of orange and white. For a heartbeat, it looked like salvation. But velocity favors the attacker. By the time the rounds reached the calculated intercept point, the drones had already shifted again, sliding laterally by just enough to escape the kill zone. The stream of fire passed behind them, close enough to rattle their frames but not close enough to destroy. Fragments of water and vapor exploded in their wake. The gun tried to correct, but the moment was gone. The arc collapsed. The system reverted to its blocked state. There was no time left. Seconds later, the first $500 drone struck the superstructure at full speed. It punched through layered steel like a thrown spear, rupturing fuel lines and electrical conduits in a spray of sparks and vapor. Fire bloomed instantly, feeding on atomized diesel and oxygen. Alarms screamed. Emergency lighting flickered. Before damage control teams could even mobilize, a second impact followed, tearing through communications arrays and severing command circuits. The ship staggered, still locked in its turn, momentum now carrying it blindly through smoke and flame.